Well, good morning. It is Monday morning. It is our fifth week together of doing our Sniblet devotionals. Here is the question. What did you worry about 1 month ago that you no longer think about today? What did you worry about 1 month ago that you no longer think about today? Interesting question. My observation is post-resurrection, mankind is not very good at believing what God has said he's going to do. Why Jesus time and time again talked about his resurrection and nobody expected it. This week, I'm looking at the first 5 stories recorded directly after the resurrection, where Jesus exposes to his followers that he, in fact, has risen from the grave. Jesus has told his followers several times. Just take the Matthew account. Matthew 16:21, Matthew 17:23, Matthew 20, verse 19. He said he would rise on the third day. Now, you think about that, the consequences of that. If Jesus failed to do what he said he would do, he would not be worthy of our devotion. I want us to look at Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 4. Let me read it to you. It says, "Now, after the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to look at the grave. And behold, a severe earthquake had occurred, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled away the stone and sat upon it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his garment was like white as snow. And the guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men." It's interesting. I'm glad Matthew included the account of the guards, because you always wonder, what happened to those guys? It's the third day. Interesting, in all the accounts, women were the first ones to receive the news. They were the first ones to go to the tomb. There's a statement there that's not by accident. There's an intentionality from God that maybe it's a statement about the female sex is more readily accepting. I think there's a deeper quality there, though. I think when you go back to creation, God has set up a model that the women are helpers, and that's not a slam, that they enable men to be more than they could ever be on their own. And I think the apostles needed help in believing that Christ had risen from the grave. And so I don't think it's a mystery why God appears to women first. I think they helped the human race. They enabled the human race to believe what otherwise they wouldn't have believed on their own. The women knew the place. It wasn't like they went to the wrong tomb. They saw Joseph of Arimathea, the previous chapter 27, verse 60. They saw him put the stone in place. Now, you think about simultaneously that, right before the women came, there was some violent earthquake. And an angel appeared as lightning. The stone is rolled away. And 16 Roman guards are terrified. Interesting commentary, because these are battle-tested warriors that were helpless. Now, look at verse 5 and 6. It says, "The angel answered and said to the woman, 'Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who has been crucified.'" Interesting, the angel comforts the women, but he's fine with allowing the soldiers to be fearful, because I think that's an appropriate response. But he's quick to soothe and to comfort the women. Verse 6, the angel says to them, "He is not here. He is risen just as he said. Come see the place where he is lying." To the women, don't be afraid. He isn't here. He rose. And he even puts in the commentary, he told you recently he was going to do that, kind of a slide in. Hey, you guys ought to remember this. It's a verification that we humans, we need evidence, because he brings them over. He says, "Here, look, I want you to see. He's gone." Now, in verses 7 through 8, he instructs them to go back and tell the disciples that he will meet them in Galilee. They believed. That's why he appeared to them first. They believed, and they were the first messengers. They were the first heralds that would tell about Jesus' resurrection. Now look at verse 9 and 10. "And behold, Jesus met them and greeted them." Evidently, before they got to the disciples, Jesus met them and greeted them. And their response, they came up and took hold of his feet and worshiped him. And Jesus said to them, do not be afraid. Again, he's comforting them. Do not be afraid. Go and take the word to my brethren to leave for Galilee, and there they shall see me. They grabbed his feet. It's probably the only part of him that they were worthy to touch. It's a response of pure worship. Now, in that initial story, think about the contrasts. To his followers, he comforts. To those who are not his followers, he leaves them in fear. Think about the contrast. He appears to the women, not to the men. To the men, he said he will see in Galilee later. He lets the women see him now. Notice the contrast, the power of the angel versus the inability of the battle-tested soldiers. This morning, the question that comes to me is, what person are you in the story? It really is an insightful question in terms of, are you the unbelieving person that Jesus would allow to remain petrified? Are you a person like those soldiers? Or are you the person that would appear, that Jesus would choose to appear to first because he knows that you would believe? Or are you the third type of person? Are you like the male disciple that will need some coaxing to believe? Or are you the fourth, the person that he isn't even intentional about appearing to? The antagonist. He never bothered to go to the Caiaphases or the Annases or the Pilates. It was unnecessary for him. You know, I look at that equation and I think, you know what, I was probably one of those male disciples that needed a little coaxing. I think Julie might have been one of those people that Jesus would have first appeared to because he knew that she'd believe. Which one are you in the four? Have a great Monday, post-resurrection. I want us to continue to be in awe of the fact that Jesus is alive and what that means. So have a great Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.